Oh, I hear somebody.
Yeah, it's me.
Hey, Reed. Do I get that right? Is that your voice?
Yes. I think it's my voice. It sounds like my voice.
I think you
Or
might.
my voice
I think you're right.
coming out of.
How are you?
Um.
I know that's a huge, broad question. Let me try this. Let me try something different. Because that can be overwhelming when people ask me that. How have you been? How was your week? Let me zero it down. How has your weekend been going so far?
I don't know. Kind of bland. Randomly got I randomly started having a minor headache yesterday, and it's continued into today
Oh, that sucks.
for reasons I don't know. So I ended up deciding to err on the side of caution and not go to the men's breakfast. And I went and got a COVID test, or got COVID tested, and so now I gotta wait 3 to 5 days to find out. So I guess I gotta skip church tomorrow just to be safe. Because like on Friday, I sent a message to my pastor asking, like I said, I've got a headache and a little bit of intestinal issues, which those went away. Um, and so, do you think if I feel fine tomorrow, do you think I'm okay to come to the men's breakfast? And he just sort of said, well, it's hard to tell if you have COVID, especially since you've been vaccinated. If you still feel bad, feel free to stay home on Sunday. And I sort of took that as like a passive way of saying, please don't come. Which kind of annoyed me because I would rather people just straight up tell me, just tell me like, be on the safe side and stay home.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay. But I understand a lot of people would think that would be rude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to. I think that's. I. I don't think that's unique to Christian culture, but I think that in Christian culture, we're striving, or we know we should be striving to be generous, to be flexible and stuff. But even in the process of doing that, sometimes we still can't help but let out some of our true feelings, and maybe that's the birth of passive aggression. I don't know, but yeah, the ideal, I think, would be that we would just be able to gently say where we're at, and just and if we feel bad about that, then say, "Oh, I feel bad about this. I wish I could feel more courageous, but I'd be more comfortable if you stayed home or whatever, or if you wore a mask or whatever." I mean, this whole COVID thing has really been, in addition to all the physical problems that have come with it, it's really been a temperature check on human character and just kind of where we're at, right?
Yeah.
Asher had to stay home a couple days, a week or so ago, because he had, what was the symptoms? He had no fever, but he had I think a little bit of a headache was the most of it. Oh no, he did wonder if he was feeling chills for a little bit, but he didn't have any kind of fever, and he just had a little bit of a headache. And it's funny how, like, I'm probably wrong about this, but I feel like the list of quote unquote COVID symptoms has expanded rapidly over the last 2 years. It's like, yeah, it's like tends to be this thing where you got like a cough and like a low grade fever, and it really hangs on for a while. Okay, cough, low grade fever, great. And now it's like, oh, are you feeling a little fatigued? You might have COVID. Stay home, and
Yeah, it's like it started off as like it's a respiratory thing. You're gonna have, you know, the lung problems, cough, sore throat, maybe body aches, fever,
yeah.
and fatigue. And now suddenly it's like diarrhea, runny nose, headache.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's the whole deal.
like so it's like basically it's expanding to the point where every symptom you can think of is now going to be possibly COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, my foot itches. Oh, you might have COVID.
Yeah. Yep.
Athlete's foot, COVID.
Yep. Well, hopefully,
Airlock, COVID.
in like I don't know, but 5 years we'll look back and say, boy, that was a crazy time, instead of saying, boy, this is a crazy world we still live in, you know?
I feel like in 5 years, I don't know. In 5 years, we're gonna look back and be like, I think we freaked out over something that isn't killing as many of us as they want us to think it is.
Yeah, that's a whole topic. I'm not going to wade into those waters, but so
I don't know. In 5 years, America will probably be communist, and we won't be allowed to say anything.
we'll see. We'll see. Well, I suppose. Well, no, I was going to say something that I will not say. You're in a kind of a sensitive situation, so you can just use your imagination to imagine where I was going to go with that next comment about communism.
Anyway.
So I was trying to think. I was looking at kind of like the people that responded to the when is good scheduling, to figure out a good time for this. And I was going through that list and kind of trying to think about with each person, since this is, I mean, we can talk about whatever, but since I'm titling this thing the SBP 15th Anniversary Hangout, I figured there'll probably be one or two moments of reflection of some kind. And so with each person, I was trying to think about, okay, what's my first memory of interacting with this person? And I can remember, like, I think Francisco might be coming tonight, but he was one of the only ones I thought that I could, like, there was a definitive, like, I remember the first time I interacted with him. And you and several other people, just kind of like gradually, I started noticing you popping up in, like, I don't know if it was YouTube comments first or something. Do you remember the first time you kind of reached out and typed something to interact with me?
Can't remember specifically, but I think it was in a live stream chat, like, well, not this kind of chat, but like, one of your extra life things, or maybe not that one, but maybe one of the shorter ones.
Okay.
I think I commented in there, and I don't remember if it was that one.
I remember now. The first time, it was during Extra Life, because you were like, it was crazy late at night, and you were in a totally different time zone. And so
normal hours for me.
Yes. And I think I made some kind of comment about that or something, and then it turned out you were in freaking China, which I did not see coming at all. That's right. Okay.
I think I remember at some point you suggest. I don't remember if you specifically suggested to me that I should go check out the forums, or if I just got that from the podcast and was like, oh yeah, there's forums. Maybe I should go check those out.
Okay.
'Cause I remember when I introduced myself in the forums, you recognized my name from one of those, and then there was like a year later, you were like, hey, it's been a year. I was like, wow, you remember that?
Yeah. Yep. That sounds familiar. I wonder which marathon that was. I feel like it's been. I mean, well, gosh, I've been on Patreon now for. Has it been 2 years? It's been more than one, maybe two. I don't know. I lose track of these things.
I was definitely there before Patreon.
Yes, I definitely know that. But yeah.
I followed you before I ever commented, because I remember I found you I was like, I think I just did a search for like Christian movie review, or just in general, and then I found you and like a couple other people who maybe not even doing anything anymore.
Okay.
So I remember watching. I don't remember what the first review I watched was, but I remember watching movie reviews and then subscribing to the channel and then finding out about the other stuff.
Okay. Cool. I should do something to try and collect better information about, like, how people found the channel or whatever. I mean, like, putting in, like, you didn't put anything about Christian Geek or Christian Nerd. You just said Christian Movie Review, which is even more general than, like, what I've been going for. And so, man, I feel like that whole quest, I'm just not good at finding the secret sauce of search engine optimization and what I should be doing with my life. So how's your little one today?
She's fine. You know, oddly, it wasn't last week. 2 weeks ago, she had on like the same. Now that I think about it, it was like the same days. Like it was a Thursday and a Friday, or a Friday and a Saturday. She had a runny nose and a cough, and then it just went away. But we decided not to go to church that week to be safe.
Okay.
And so, for all I know, she had COVID briefly, and that's how I got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I'm like, man, if this is all COVID, is I'm not that worried. But
We totally thought that our family had COVID. What was it? Before, like, oh, this would have been like 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, the symptoms in our house were fairly COVID. You know, they were like half COVID and half classic COVID, and half like new flavor COVID. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was also hanging on. That was the thing that we noticed, is like it was hanging on longer than our typical colds and flus used to. And so, but eventually, and so we were, quarantining and stuff, and eventually Holly got tested and was negative, and so the rest of us, didn't bother because we knew that we all, had the same bug. But yeah, and we used to just call these things flus and colds, and now it's like maybe COVID.
yeah,
So have you done anything?
I mean, I pretty much just think COVID is the new flu,
Yeah,
and we ought to just treat it like that. But
yeah.
I don't know.
You
What were you
did?
saying?
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you done anything like fun and nerdy lately that you that stands out to you from the last week.
Fun and nerdy. Let's see.
You still reading comics? Is that kind of like you post? If there's one kind of like geek genre thing that you tend to post on, I feel like it leans in the direction of comics these days.
Yeah, especially comics now. It used to be more movies, but now I've gotten more into comics, and movie watching is sort of few and far between with me now.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot. I mean, I've been posting to my Tumblr thing. I started posting reviews. I've decided to start posting reviews of some of the stuff I'm reading, aside from just mostly what I've been posting on my Tumblr. If you remember the forum thing, the thing I post on the forum is just panels and pages that I liked or that I thought I had something to say about.
Okay.
A lot of which get into like sort of theological things or theological complaints, like this is not how it works, guys.
Yeah.
And I do have a whole series now. I'm scanning through it just to remember. I do have a whole series now about Bendis speak and just like examples of Brian Michael Bendis's style of writing that annoys me.
Oh.
Most of it annoys me. There's like one thing that doesn't. So I've got like.
Give me an example of Bendis speak.
First one on my list is self-interruptions. He has characters interrupt themselves a lot to then start repeating what they're going to say. Like, and all the examples I have on here are from DC stuff, even though his Marvel stuff was more plentiful. It just happened to be I was reading a lot of his DC stuff.
Okay.
Like, you've got this person saying, like, what happened? Someone's like,
Oh, okay.
no one knows yet. The world doesn't, blah, blah, blah. And then the woman says, oh gosh, I used to work there.
Okay.
And then there's another one like, oh dear Lord, thank you. Like, okay, Perry White's talking to somebody. He's like, oh dear Lord, thank you. And she said, that effort should blah, blah, focused on something. And then he says, I'm exactly, yes. And it's like just these annoying stops. And then like, I'm like, I don't hear people talk like this.
What? Seriously? You listen to my podcast every week and you don't hear me like stopping and restarting and rabbit trailing?
Maybe on a podcast, not in dialogue with each other.
Yeah, I suppose.
And then but that one's, I don't know. And that one, I mean, they do it so often, and they stop to like make an exclamation, and then they go back to not exclaiming, and it's awkward. But the other one is constant confirmation and clarification. There's always somebody who says something, and then the other person sort of says like here I've got Batman and Green Arrow running, and Green Arrow says, I've never been to Amsterdam before, and Batman says, I find that hard to believe. Green Arrow says, it's lovely. Batman says, it is. Green Arrow says, Riddler's making an escape. Batman says, he is.
Huh.
Is that really necessary?
Huh.
To just constantly say just constantly agree with each other in short bursts. It's
Hmm.
and again, like I point out in the thing, it feels right in Ultimate Spider-Man when most of the characters are teenagers,
Yeah, yeah.
sort of like pretentious teenagers.
Yeah, and I've
Um,
read I've read all of Ultimate Spider-Man now, and so when you started describing what Bendispeak is, especially with that first one, I was like, I think that I've noticed because there's something that I always noticed about his dialogue, um, and how it had a bit of quirkiness to it or idiosyncrasies to it. But yeah, I guess I never really thought about how that would play outside of an environment of teenagers because I really didn't see him write outside of that demographic very often.
very choppy. Everybody like a lot of times people speak in really short things back and forth to each other.
Hmm.
It's sort of I think some people say it sort of draws things out more, and so some people say it's kind of like padding.
Okay.
Oh,
Hmm.
by the way, J.D. Myers posted that he won't be able to make it tonight. His wife had a large blood clot,
Oh my gosh.
and that she had surgery on to get today, and she's recovering, but they're still in hospital.
Oof. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Was that just underneath where it's posted on Patreon?
No, that's in the Discord. In the Discord
Oh, okay.
general thing.
Okay. All right, let me see if I can. I don't know how to work this. I learned just enough about Discord to be able to do these Discord voice chats, and that's about it. Um,
I don't
okay.
know what your screen looks like.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid that, like, I don't know how to look at. I'm afraid that if I try to find the text, like if I look at the text channels, like I'll exit out of the Insider voice chat.
Um, well, what are you looking at
I'm
now?
looking at an iPhone.
Oh, I'm not sure what it looks like with an iPhone.
Okay, well then I'm not going to risk
I'm
it.
on a computer, so.
Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna risk it. I'll just stay where I'm at. Uh,
But I've also recently, away from Bendisi stuff, I've also, like I said, I've reviewed a couple things. I've read all of the. Have you ever heard of DC's Earth One line?
yes, I believe that started with a Superman story, didn't it? Like a retelling of Superman, like his origin, who
Either
he's.
Superman or Batman. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one was first, but they
And it's
kind of came.
I think you said on the forums or somewhere that it's kind of like their shot at doing the ultimate, like the Marvel's Ultimate Universe thing. Like, what if this was more like what would these characters look like if they were adapted to film? You know, given a more grounded or realistic kind of thing. And even though the Ultimate Universe totally went away eventually from that kind of like core value, but it started out as like let's make a a comic book Marvel universe that is what they would look like as movies. So is that your take on the Earth One line?
I didn't think of the movie angle, but that could be. I don't. I do sort of feel like the Ultimate stuff, especially like Ultimates and maybe Fantastic Four. I do feel like those are sort of cinematic in there because they like to do the big splash pages and a lot of stuff happening. And plus, like a bunch of the Ultimates look like they're based on actual movies.
Hmm. Yeah.
But this one, I don't know how much of it's supposed to be cinematic, but it definitely it's kind of the thing where it's like, you know, what if Superman, you know, like what if we adjust Superman's origin to be sort of in modern times?
Yeah.
But it's not just that; it's also let's change a few little things. Which with Superman, like I've read all there so far. There's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, and Green Lantern, and each of them and they're graphic novels, so they weren't done in like single issue form.
Oh, okay.
They were actually each of them has 2 or 3 graphic novel. What am I saying? Graphic novel installments.
Okay.
I think they came out a ways apart, especially the Green Lantern
Okay.
the 2 Green Lantern ones. But like the Superman one, if you like reading the first issue or the first book, I can see how it might have actually been inspired by or slightly inspired Man of Steel.
Hmm.
Like the villain, even though there's no Zod, there's a similar kind of villain that comes and is like, I've come here to get Superman, give him to me.
Huh.
And even though there isn't a Superman yet, I've come here to get this guy and give him to me. And so, aside from that, actually, the first Superman isn't that much different than the normal Superman, except he just looks a lot younger.
Okay.
I don't really like the art that much. I don't know. It seems like, I don't want to say it's too manga or anime inspired, but there's a pointedness to people's faces and the coloring and it's the artist. It's not really my kind of thing. At least not what I want to see for Superman.
Yeah.
But things get considerably different in the next two books, deviating enough. There are some familiar villains, but it definitely doesn't follow the Superman thing. And then Batman, the Batman one, which has art I really like that you've probably seen before. Do you know Gary Frank?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many artists you know off the top of your head, but Gary Frank does the art for that one. He also did the art for Three Jokers.
Okay.
Probably a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I know that I know him from. I think did he do a Superman for All Seasons? No.
No, that was Tim Sale.
That's right. That's right. But I know the name Gary Frank though. I know that. Was he? Let's see. Was he the one that was?
Oh, he did Doomsday Clock.
Oh, did he? Okay. All right.
According to this anyway. So
Okay.
Maybe that's what I really recognize.
Did he also do like the Jeff Johns Richard Donner run on Superman?
Richard Donner run. Oh.
Yeah, there was an arc where Jeff Johns and Richard Donner. I think it was mostly Jeff Johns. But the two of them kind of paired up to create a Superman story years ago. And I want to say, I remember that the art in that arc specifically, and I think it might have carried on for a while after Donner was out of the picture. They drew Superman to look significantly like Christopher Reeve. And I'm thinking, for some reason in my mind, I'm associating Gary Frank with that. But even if I'm wrong, yes, I definitely have heard of Gary Frank.
It says on his list here. It says he worked on Action Comics in 2007, from 2007 to 2011.
That sounds right. That sounds right. I think it was an Action Comics.
He also, this is surprising to me. He also did Bullets and Bracelets, which was. Do you remember the Amalgam comics?
Oh yeah, that came in the wake of the DC versus Marvel thing.
DC versus Marvel.
Yeah.
I was so into those. I feel like some of them don't hold up now, but back then I thought it was so amazing.
Oh yeah.
And, apparently he worked on one of those, Bullets and Bracelets, which I don't remember what character. I think. Oh, was that like the Punisher mixed with somebody?
Well, it must have been. Yeah.
Somebody?
It's got to be some kind of Wonder Woman thing in the mix. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I bought that one. I didn't get the whole line of all those because they were all basically one shots. But I did get.
They were all one shots, and it felt like they all came out at like the same time. I didn't go around and buy every single one.
Yeah,
like Wolverine and Batman together. Okay.
Yeah, I got a good chunk of them, and I'll always remember though the DC that like the fights that they had with the characters they paired up to fight each other. It was reader determined. It was, and I'm like, no, my gosh, no. I mean, at least let, find some editors that have some common history between DC and Marvel, and let them make the decision. Because otherwise, you've got characters like Lobo versus Wolverine. Well, Wolverine won the fight, but Wolverine is not going to win that fight. There's no way Wolverine's going to win that fight. That's Lobo. I mean, Lobo is like a Superman level threat, and like far more unkillable than Wolverine. And understandably they didn't really show how the fight played out. They had them fight for a bit, and then they both went knocking behind a bar or something like that. They were fighting in a bar, and so behind the counter. And then at some point, Wolverine just gets up and walks away, and we don't see what happened back there. I'm like,
He
yeah,
gets up and lights a cigar.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, that's that. I'm sure that's that writer was like, listen, I don't know how to make, justify Wolverine doing this, so I'm not gonna show how it happens because I have no idea how it would happen. That's how I have to believe that played out for the writer and the artist.
It was. I remember there were, I think there were five. There were five of the fights that the fans voted on. There were a few other ones that happened in issues like before the voting.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah, I think you're right.
I can't remember which one. Or maybe there were like five or seven. It was something uneven, so that there could be like
A winner.
there could be like a winner or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember, and I remember. I mean, I remember a friend of mine thinking like all the Marvel ones should have won, or whatever. But except for, well, I don't remember what he said there. But anyway, yeah, I remember like now looking back at it, going back and reading it, and I'm thinking like, I don't know now because it doesn't see. I mean, Spider-Man and Superboy. And
Oh yeah.
this was Ben Reilly Spider-Man.
Oh, huh.
He basically just he. I mean, I guess they tried to make it seem kind of real because it's like, or realistic way is Superboy's basically too headstrong, and that's how Spider-Man sort of tricks him into crashing into some electric thing that knocks him out.
Yeah, weird.
Like Superman and the Hulk, most people are going to vote Superman.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I think they actually had like Storm beat Wonder Woman.
They did. I didn't like that. I remember that. I was like, nah, no. That's not how that works.
I don't remember. I know like Elektra beat Catwoman, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that was the voting.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I remember
I
that.
think
Go ahead.
Aquaman beat Flash by like dropping a whale, or not Flash. What am I saying? Aquaman beat Namor the Submariner by like dropping a whale on him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
I don't remember if that was a voting one either. I think
yeah.
the Flash one was a voting one.
The Flash definitely won against Quicksilver. I mean, I think even Quicksilver fans would have to acknowledge, come on, that's Flash by a mile.
Yeah.
I did have to grudgingly accept that Silver Surfer would win against Green Lantern Kyle Rayner because he was pretty new to the job. But I was like, listen, if this would have been Hal Jordan, it would have been an interesting fight, but my money would be on Green Lantern.
Did you know there was actually, as a lead-in to that Marvel vs. DC series, there was a Green Lantern Silver Surfer crossover?
Yes, I have that. I don't really remember the story hardly at all, but I do remember that.
I have it. I recall it being annoyingly cheesy because there's a lot of like the bad guys were the Cyborg Superman, and no, not the Cyborg Superman, Parallax, and I don't remember who the Silver Surfer bad guy was.
Was it Galactus?
No, it was somebody much smaller level.
But
It
that
was like they both showed up to the other one, the one that they weren't normally accustomed with, and basically tricked him into believing that the other hero was actually the bad guy. So that's why they fought each other. They're like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm duped. And
Yeah.
Go beat them, and then it ended with showing the glowing box that was in the glowing box in the alley that was the catalyst of all the stuff happening.
Huh.
But yeah, I can see that one. And then the big contention back in those days, I was a Marvel guy
Okay.
more than a DC guy. So the big contention for me was Batman beating Captain America. But they tried to make it like as closely matched as possible.
Yes.
That it was just one small little thing, and it wasn't like a decisive victory.
Yes.
Just, Batman barely won. But then did you notice? I'm sure you've read JLA Avengers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The big team up much later that was much more palatable. Probably.
Yeah, I remember enjoying that more than the Versus stuff.
I remember there's a brief part in that when the teams start sort of fighting each other because they each think that they're like evil invaders from the other universe.
Sure.
That Batman and Captain America size each other up, and then they're both like, Batman's like, you might be able to beat me, but it would take you a long time. But I get the feeling that we don't really want to do that, do we? And they're like, and Captain America's like, no. And they're like, let's go figure this out while the rest of them are keeping themselves busy.
Nice.
And they go to the Batcave and figure out what's going on and why everybody's fighting, and they end up popping in at the very end of the whole thing. But yeah, that series is good. I kind of wish I left it in. I actually brought that series to China with me the last time I went back there, and now it's still there. And I'm going to read it again.
I wonder if that would be on DC's service or Marvel's service, or neither, or both. Huh.
Hold on a sec. My daughter's asking me something. What? It's over, yes. The robot penguin, I didn't see that part. I started a VeggieTales thing and then came in here, and now it's over, and she's coming in and asking me about it as if I know what happened.
Okay.
Like,
I was ready for that to
any robot penguins, but okay.
I was ready for that to be another comic book story she was talking about. Sure, yeah, robot penguins, yeah.
It was the VeggieTales as superheroes, so.
Oh, okay.
You know, kind of almost a tie-in.
We've got 2 of the Larry boys, but I'm sure they've made more since our boys aged out of VeggieTales.
Yeah, this was the League of Incredible Vegetables.
Oh yeah, we don't have that. That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole thing. Anyway. Gosh, what else on that? Going back to the Earth 1 things I was talking.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how interested you are in any of them, but so far I have reviewed. I don't know if this is an advertisement or if I'm just trying to get somebody to care that I reviewed these things.
Okay.
No, there's 4 notes on it. One guy actually really agreed with me on my Wonder Woman review. The Wonder Woman one is 3 books, and they're written by Grant Morrison. And so you can guess my feelings. Though actually, it was a lot less weird in the Grant Morrison kind of weird.
Yeah.
Where he like makes up words.
Yeah.
And math equations, and everything doesn't make sense, and you feel like you have to read everything else he's ever written to understand it. It wasn't like that.
Okay, that's good.
It was. I honestly don't know if he was trying to lampoon feminism or say that the world would really be a perfect place if men would just let women be in control and you know, just submit to them and let them brainwash them into doing whatever they wanted, because that's what the message of the story basically ends up being.
Interesting.
Like it doesn't use the term original sin, but there isn't really much, like, there isn't any real like Christian religion to it, but the feeling I got in this story is that it was like saying that men are generally inherently evil, and women are inherently good but are often corrupted by men.
Okay.
So the women on Paradise Island are perfect because they haven't been corrupted by men. Maybe not totally perfect, but you know, and so men need to submit to women, and it's amazing I finished it.
Have you found, I mean, I feel like you and I probably feel the same about a lot of Grant Morrison's writing, and that it's just not our cup of tea. Whatever frequency we need to be tuned into to enjoy what he does, we can't get that on our dial. But is there anything of his, like, post that JLA run way back in the day? Is there anything after that you've read of Grant Morrison's that you're like, dang, I really like that story? Maybe not the best thing in the world, but like that's an enjoyable story. I would read it again and I would recommend it.
Well, when it comes to recommending, it's more like these days I'm like, I'll recommend, like, I don't even know how well I say I recommend it if you like things that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's like, yeah, I like that JLA, even though it's been a long time since I read it. I'm gonna get back to it one of these days, whenever I get through all this other stuff I got. But I know I liked. I don't. I don't know if I don't know if I would put it in. I really like that, and I would recommend it. But his Batman run was interesting.
Okay. Which one was that? What was the main
He
story
sort of,
arc?
huh?
What was the main story arc? Is this the one where it's like they validated the weird psychedelic stuff? Is,
Yeah, that's the one where at one point Batman like let's see, it wasn't it's before the Court of Owls, but there's sort of a thing like that where there's this Dr. Hurt who's kind of trying to make Batman think he's actually his father and his father didn't really die, and it messes Batman up so much that he like that's how they brought sort of the Batman of Zur-En-Arr thing.
that's the word I was looking for. This weird.
That was for some reason that interested me, even though it didn't make a lot of sense.
Uh huh.
There was, but like there was other stuff. I mean, he introduced Damien.
Yes. Yeah, and I like
Batman's son.
I really found the post Morrison Damien stuff I've really connected with that story, you know. But like the introduction itself, it was again the experience of like, did I miss an issue here? I feel like this story, I'm missing an issue.
Yeah, I felt that a lot. They did. I think I remember reading like they did like a Death of Ra's al Ghul story, no, a Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, something like that.
Okay.
And I got the novel of that, and then I found out it wasn't like a collection of a miniseries. It was a bunch of different stuff from different regular. So like Batman, Detective Comics, Batgirl, and then they just cobbled them together. So it didn't read very fluidly. But Grant Morrison was involved with the Batman side of that. So I think. So that was around that time.
Okay.
But everything else, I don't know. I was interested in like the mind game thing really messing him up. That did the Batman Zur-En-Arr and how he got out of that.
Yeah.
And then that did sort of, in a way, lead into Final Crisis. Which I mean, he wrote that too, but it didn't really. It was sort of like as soon as that ended, it was supposed to be part like Final Crisis started, and I don't know, but and anyway, so I feel like I have maybe if I go back and read it again, I'll have a totally different view. But so there's that I kind of like. And I know you. I don't know if you ever read the book, and I know you didn't really like the animated version, but I liked All Star Superman.
Yeah, I saw that on your list because I read you posted on, I think it was on the forums, a list of, I can't remember what the context was, but I remember seeing that on a list you made in a, like, this is, I liked this. And I have not read the original story. I just saw the movie, and yeah, so I don't. I remember the movie just kind of felt like it was going in some really weird directions. But so my question for you would be those same weird directions. Like I think Lois was losing her mind, getting all paranoid or terrified of Superman or something. I can't remember what was going on there. But there was. So I guess my question would be: is the story very much the same as that animated movie? And how did you feel about the movie versus the source material?
Well, I thought the movie was maybe a little easier to totally understand because it does at parts of it get into Grant Morrison's. Not, I mean, it doesn't get as wonky as his current Green Lantern stuff or the Superman Beyond tie into Final Crisis. That was the probably the most frustrating thing of his I've read that didn't involve straw feminism.
Okay.
But there's a lot more to it. Like the thing about the All-Star Superman is that it's almost like a series. Like each issue is sort of a self-contained story that slightly ties into the bigger story, which is harder to do, I guess, when you make it into a movie and the movie's all one thing.
Yeah.
It'll be easier to read as issue by issue because, like, there's like one issue where Superman finds out that he's got sun poisoning and he's starting to wonder about that. And then the next issue, he gives Lois superpowers, like for a day or something, and that's where he comes in conflict with Samson and Hercules or whatever. That was kind of something. And then that was the one where briefly Lois started getting paranoid, and they explained that as there was some sort of thing in the Fortress of Solitude that was affecting her mind.
Yeah.
But then that's when he discovers, oh, I'm not really affected by kryptonite right now because of my sun overexposure.
Yeah.
Because she gets paranoid and tries to shoot him with kryptonite gas, and he's just like, huh, all right, that didn't hurt me.
Yeah.
And then like there's another issue where he goes to Bizarro World, and that's wacky. And then there's, and then another one that ended up, actually I don't remember if the Jimmy Olsen one ended up in the cartoon. There's one that's sort of like a tribute. It's like a tribute to the old Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen stories, where all this crazy stuff happened to Jimmy Olsen.
Oh.
In the Silver Age.
Okay.
So a bunch
Yeah.
of crazy stuff happened to Jimmy Olsen.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like that kind of era was
like
probably.
And then it all kind of wraps up in the Lex Luthor finally trying to take over, and then it doesn't work out because it never works out. And so I would say the movie's maybe easier to understand, but not fleshed out as well, and maybe not as easy to follow without chapter breaks.
Huh.
I feel like the vignettes really lend themselves to a sort of chapter or issue break that maybe the movie would have benefited from having a little, like, now we're moving on to Act 3 or whatever.
Okay.
I liked the art and animation of the movie better because the book was drawn by Frank Whiteley, and his people look gross. Like, seriously, Grant Morrison likes working with him because he also did Jla Earth 2, which was sometime after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yes.
Where they brought back the crime syndicate.
Yes.
And so they were in Earth 2 instead of Earth 3 because they weren't doing and so it was part of the antimatter universe or whatever. Frank Whiteley drew those two.
Okay.
And people just, I don't know. Somebody once described him, and he draws people that look like, mush monsters. mud monster. Everybody looks like Clayface.
I am kind of knee deep in the crime syndicate right now myself. Actually, I'm reading. I'm in the middle of Forever Evil. I don't know if you read that storyline. Yeah, it is New 52. Yeah, it's right about where I back in the day dropped comics. And I'm reading it now, and the promotional materials for Forever Evil back in the day were maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, because what was it? Oh yeah, they weren't making it clear what books you actually needed to read in order to follow the story. They were just kind of like making this huge splash of like all the tie-ins, and I'm just like, man, I just want the core story. It wasn't as bad as Rebirth. Man, DC Universe Rebirth. I don't know if you've read any of that, but at least Forever Evil had like a mini series that was called Forever Evil #1, Forever Evil #2. But DC Universe Rebirth, whatever it was called, was a one-shot. And then after that, it's just like, good luck seeing what the changes are in continuity, what the new status quo is. It's gonna be a slow burn, baby. You're just gonna have to read everything for the next 5 years, Whew.
I never read the one shot, but I did go. I read all the Rebirth stuff of the characters I was interested in.
Okay.
And well, I mean, I posted that whole thing on the forums about my with a bunch of 1 or 2 sentence reviews of every series, basically saying, if I could go back in time, I would say, read this one, don't read this one.
Yeah.
Read this one because you have to.
Yeah.
But you're not going to like it very much.
Hey, here's a question for you. What is, when I mean, you've kind of alluded to this already as we've been chatting, and I've talked about this before. We can be reading comic books that we enjoy, but then at some point can get turned off because of something philosophically. There's something going on in the worldview of the writing that is just a major turnoff. I'm curious what books or what stories in comics you have read that kind of walked up to that line, but never quite crossed it to the point where you're like, ugh, I don't like this. I think for me, the example I would give would be John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake's The Spectre series. I loved for a long time I would have easily said this is my favorite comic book series ever. Not necessarily my favorite character, but my favorite comic book series. And it's because I loved how they didn't shy away from the idea of God's wrath being a thing, and that there are people in the world that are deserving of wrath, you know, and they leaned into that with the Spectre, and leaned into monotheism and leaned into validating a lot of Judeo-Christian truths. They came, I mean, depending on how you read the language, they really propped up Jesus in a way that I would not have, that I certainly wouldn't expect today. Today, we'd get nothing more than him being a moral character, you know, like a man of good moral character, a very great moral teacher. I think that's as far as writers would go today. But he went significantly further than that in talking, in just briefly bringing up and alluding to Jesus. But then there was plenty of other ways that it would go off the rails and incorporate relativism and even in some ways kind of validating Wicca. I mean, not Wicca by name, but I mean, just kind of like, you know, modern day witchcraft practices and stuff. And so that's where I would have to like kind of cock my head in a funny way and put headcanon into overdrive, you know, get my headcanon engine working really hard. But I could still kind of make it work well enough, de-emphasize in my mind the stuff that was going off the rails and emphasizing in my mind the stuff that really connected with my own beliefs. And so at the end of the day, I was like, okay, there was some effort involved, but I could still say, man, I really enjoyed this book. So is there anything that kind of falls into that category for you?
Good question. Because I mean, I can think of a few that do go over the line and lose me.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, I haven't read a lot that delve deeply into the super religious stuff. I mean, I guess sort of Wonder Woman in general talks about, you know, pagan deities as if
Sure.
they're real.
Yeah.
And
Although,
mythology.
give me your take on. I mean, it sounds like you've probably read more Wonder Woman than I have. I mean, do they treat the gods in the world of Wonder Woman as like beings that ought to be worshipped or should be worshipped or are being worshipped, or are they gods just in the sense of super duper powerful beings? That's the sense I've gotten, is that like in the DC universe, when polytheism comes into play, by gods they don't mean that any, you know, they're talking about these just super super powerful beings.
Yeah, that seems to be, at least with the Wonder. I haven't read a whole lot of Wonder Woman before Rebirth, but with the Wonder Woman I read during and after Rebirth, that seems to be the main thing, especially because they can die.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Though they usually seem to come back somehow.
Yeah.
But I mean, so do all the superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody except Uncle Ben.
Yeah. As it should be.
Well, everybody except Uncle Ben and Batman's parents.
Yeah. There you go.
But like, yeah, there's actually quite a bit of parts in the Wonder Woman during Rebirth, maybe a little bit after Rebirth, but during Rebirth, where she specifically says that like the gods aren't to be trusted, and like, oh gosh, there was one thing I had. I don't think I put that. Well, here, on my Tumblr, I have this bit that I pulled out and underlined. It's not actually comic, but it was released in the comics. It's an interview. It's an interview as if it were published in the Daily Planet between Lois Lane and Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And it's like an interview article. And so Lois asks, she says, she's asking, like, what do you think of the the idea that there's someone out there who could manipulate you for very long. Because Wonder Woman's talking about having been manipulated to do certain things. She said, "Are you talking about gods or ordinary humans?" And she says, Wonder Woman says, "When we talk about the patrons with a capital P outside my culture, when the patrons are discussed, they are always discussed as they are granted omnipotence that they do not have."
Hmm.
And she says, "I think perhaps this is a result of the blurring of concepts of divinity and godhood.
Hmm.
There is a larger discussion to be had here, where a Judeo-Christian monotheistic deity is presented as omnipotent and may well be. The patrons are they are more flawed than the people you will meet on the street. Thus, they are capable of, if not more capable, because of their power, all the mendacity and cruelty and pettiness that you encounter in day-to-day life." So,
Wow, that's really interesting. And these are the words of Wonder Woman.
these are of whichever writer decided this is
Yeah.
this is Wonder Woman. I hesitate to say that this is what I'm trying to say. It does not take a god to deceive me. I have been deceived by plenty of mortals, flesh and blood. So I would not grant that it could only be a power on the scale of a dark side.
Yeah.
And so the gods are on the same level as dark side and High Father and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so
That's really interesting. That's so interesting that as a character who is immersed in the lore of this pagan polytheistic religion, that she is as a character acknowledging the possibility that the Judeo-Christian God may be omnipotent. I mean, that's almost getting to the point of saying the Judeo-Christian God may be worthy of worship. I mean, that's probably the closest we'll ever get to a character like Wonder Woman that's that prominent, saying that. I mean, in my mind, I look at that and I say, so the way Wonder Woman's being written here, I would almost describe her as like an agnostic that could, this will never happen, but that theoretically could become a believer. She's not committed to anti-Christ, so like Christianity is false. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Despite her background, which you would think would have her leaning in the opposite direction of giving any credence to Christian teaching.
Right. And here, looking through my stuff here, maybe I think I have maybe a bit of an answer to your original question.
Okay.
Of what I like that sort of goes to a point of almost me wanting to give up on it.
Yeah.
Because of spiritual differences, but not really. It's like there's that. There's certain Wonder Woman books. There's some Wonder Woman books, the later ones after Rebirth, that not so much spiritual things, but basically my concept of certain, sexuality issues that are presented. But that happens in a bunch of books these days.
Sure.
That I'm like, once it gets to that and we're suddenly like putting, passing all this stuff off as normal, it just totally takes me out of it.
Yeah.
But there was, oh gosh, I'm trying to think if I can do this without spoiling much, but I was actually very interested in, hold on, I've been interrupted. The neighbors are still playing cornhole. They're making a lot of noise. Did that bother you? Oh, you just wanted to tell me that? All right. Why? Because it's fun. And it's Saturday night. What are you going to do on a Saturday night? They're not all going to go watch VeggieTales. Okay. Anyway. Dark Knight's metal and even more so Dark Knight's death metal.
Okay.
Get really big into who created the universe.
Oh, interesting.
Especially the latter. And it's kind of meta if you take it as actually, I mean, well, Doomsday Clock almost is the same way, or really anything with Dr. Manhattan having that much power. It's no, Doomsday Clock more so. But Dark Knight's metal, and especially Dark Knight's death metal, when they get it, almost like it's easier to accept when I think this is a comic book world. So really, I'm on the outside looking into this world. This world is sort of within my world, and so they don't see beyond. It's like ants looking up, and they see people, and they think people are gods.
Uh-huh.
But people look up, and we actually, I guess people look up and see stars, and they think stars are gods. Maybe that's what the old pagans. If we didn't have the Bible, we would look up and think maybe the stars are the gods.
Hmm.
Kind of like that, and that's sort of how I look at it. Is like the gods of the DC universe are Jeff Johns. Dan. Well, is Dan DiDio even still there?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I've been reading. Okay. Off topic. I've been reading a little bit of Tiny Titans. Which
Okay.
Is sort of like a cute little version of Teen Titans for kids.
Okay.
Drawn by R. Baltazar, and I read some of that to my daughter because she likes it.
Nice.
And sometimes in the background, especially in Bruce Wayne's house, or well, Robin's house. Robin's the main character. On the wall, they'll have like a drawn signed picture of Dan Didio.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm like, no kid knows it. No kid knows who that is.
Yeah.
Funny. There's a bunch of stuff in there that like you have to know comics to be like, I get it.
Yeah, that's for the parents that are reading to their kids. Yeah.
For the parents that are reading to their kids or whatever.
That's great.
Anyway, but yeah, I guess that's my answer. Is stuff that gets meta like that.
Yeah.
And I start thinking like, oh, they're saying that this is the creation of the world, and then I think, no, this is the creation of their world, and we're higher than them. And then then it sort of, then you get, I can see how that could take people out of it if to look at it.
Yeah.
But I don't read it thinking they're saying that my world was created by, these so-and-so people that created these so-and-so entities, and stuff like that. I don't know. It's if I look at it the right way, I can appreciate it, and I feel like I look at those the right way.
Okay.
I can some comics I can't put my hand on a lot of them. Maybe usually stuff that deals with a lot of magic. I try to look at it in that way, and I just can't do it. It just seems too occult.
Okay.
And I can't shake my the stigma around it.
Sure.
But with Dark Knight's death metal and the multiverse and the stuff beyond the multiverse, I seem to be able to do that.
Okay. Man, something you said a while back just made me think, oh, I want to read that series. I want to read that monthly series. You mentioned Lois Lane interviewing Wonder Woman, and I'm like, crap, I would totally read a monthly book that was just called The Daily Planet. And it was just filled, not with art, but filled with articles of like Lois or Lois and Clark or other characters, that are known as writers of the Daily Planet, but, featuring Lois and Clark as the main writers. And you're just reading articles that they have written, like interviewing major players in the DC universe, interviewing, villains and heroes and asking them these probing questions. That's the kind of stuff that I really dig, because I think, just with you describing that Wonder Woman interview, it reminds me of a question of, okay, if these characters did exist, kind of like how Man of Steel approaches it, people would be like wondering, is this God? Is this Jesus? Or were we wrong about all of our beliefs and this person is God? Or like these huge, huge questions about reality, the nature of reality, and all that kind of stuff would be asked. Or at the very least, it would get more contemplative and philosophical in interviews like that. Well, what do you think about this issue? Or what do you think about this kind of moral issue and like the existence of vigilantes and not being subject to the government? All those kinds of like questions that have legal ramifications, philosophical ramifications. so many of which we take for granted that are touched on now and then in comic book stories when like a superhero quote unquote crosses the line, or whatever. But I would totally, I would totally read that kind of book. Would that interest you at all, or am I kind of like in a minority that would result in the failure of that book?
um, I guess, I don't know. It would be, difficult. Like, when I read Watchmen, I hate reading all the supplementary news articles.
I do too. I do too.
So if it was stuff like that, where I feel like I have to read it and try to look really closely to find out stuff so that I can understand the comics I'm going to read, that would bother me.
Yeah, it would definitely depend on the subject of the interviews.
Yeah, and I think it would depend on like the length of everything. Like, I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
read really long articles.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I mean, it'd be funny to drop in like half a page of like Steve Lombard commenting on sports.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I'd have to see it.
Yeah.
And it may be the kind of thing where I'm sort of interested long enough to like, I'm interested for a little bit, but the novelty would wear off.
Yeah.
After a while. Yeah. But I'd give it a look, especially if it was free.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it would function best not as a whole.
I get everything from the library these days anyway.
Maybe it would function best not as like its own book, but as like the last 2 pages of a Superman monthly book or something like that.
Yeah, actually, the last few pages of at least the first 2 Superman Earth 1 books are that. They're an article based on what you just read, written by either Lois Lane or Clark.
Okay.
I can't remember if the third one's like that or not. So that was kind of
Interesting.
Which, I mean, I've talked about that. I'm gonna. That's my next review. Reviewing that one. I'm reviewing them in the order that I liked them, from least to best. And so I railed on Wonder Woman, and then I wrote about the Teen Titans one, and next is the Superman one. And then I'll just make you wait and see if I like Batman better than Green Lantern.
Yeah, I'll be interested
I
to.
don't know if they're still going to be doing those. I'm surprised there isn't a Flash one. But I don't know if they're planning on continuing that line.
Hey, where's your just for anybody that watches the video version of this later on at some point, how would people find like your Tumblr where you're writing about comics?
Oh yeah, advertisement. I call it Prime Panels, so I think like Prime. I think then the proper URL. Let me try it out. PRIMEPANELS .tumblr .com. Does that bring me there? Yes, that brings me there. So I call it Prime Panels because I couldn't think of anything better. primepanels.tumblr.com, and it's just mostly panels that I think are funny or think I have something to say about. And now I'm starting to do some reviews too.
Cool.
Mostly DC, but I've gotten a few Marvel things because some Marvel stuff has gotten interesting to me.
Okay. Sweet.
And then there are actually a couple. If you look close, if you sift through, there's a couple things from Kingstone Comics, which writes Bible comics.
What Stone? Oh, Kingstone. Yeah.
Kingstone.
Yeah.
You've heard of him?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I retweet when they have some new stuff coming out, so that's cool. Well, that's our time, man. This turned into the cool Hangout with Reed and Talk Comics hour, which is totally fine by me.
Really odd that I'm the only one that showed up because I was the one who, like, I didn't vote for this time because I thought I had class.
Yeah, this was the opposite of what'll happen sometimes with the Discord monthly Hangout, where like, 2 people will say they can come, and then like, I'll get like an extra person and stuff. But this time, like a good handful of people said they could come, and then like only one of you were able to make it. So I'll share my anniversary reflections maybe on the podcast or something next week. But this was, hey, I'm always down to talk comics with you, Reed. So this was cool for me.
Me too. I got nobody else to do it with.
All right. Well,
So I hate to like hijack every one of your live.
no. It's cool. It's cool. When that happens, I kind of read the room and like, if we, if someone's there that's not really into comics, I'll steer us back. But I mean, I don't mind, especially when it's just you and me. Let's do it, man.
It's just you and me, What else? Anyway.
All right.
It was fun.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you when I talk to you.
You too.
All right. Thanks. Bye.